Fascinating stuff from Jeff Carlisle over on the website, talking about the possibility of MLS players getting a salary cut up to 50%. Let's welcome in Ali Moreno and Herculez Gomez to discuss this. Herc, let's start with you. What are you hearing?
This is unbelievable. According to this article, I believe the total payroll between all the players in the league is about $301 million. They're looking for 150 of that to be reduced, to be wiped out willingly by the players. Now, the thing is, there is no language in the current CBA that can force the owners in Major League Soccer to do this to the players. It would have to be voluntary. What I'm hearing is if the players don't agree to this, that famous CBA that they agreed upon on principle that hasn't been signed, well, that may go out the window and maybe we'll see a lockout. It's an unfortunate circumstance. Players, I should say owners, are realizing that maybe it's not worth playing these games if they're behind closed doors because they depend so much on the game day revenue. What is the ticket sales, merchandising, what is parking, what is promotion and endorsements and advertisements that go with all the game day. Their TV deal is about $90 million. To put it in perspective, NBA is about $2.5 billion and football, NFL, is about $5 billion. They can't survive if it's behind closed doors. This is going to get murky. The players have a choice to make. They're asking them to reduce their salary by 50%, but if they get to June 1st, they've already made 50% of their salary, so the players have a huge, really, decision to make here. What do they do? I think this is going to get tricky for the players.
Wow, a lot to break down there, Ali. Let's focus first on the players. If you were still playing, how would you feel about this?
Well, clearly, I would not be excited about it. I would not be happy about it. I would be extremely frustrated and disappointed. But I would have to understand that we live in a different world than what we did 3 months ago. And so there has to be some flexibility. Now, the part that I think would be most frustrating for the players is that you're saying flat out 50%, that's it. There's no negotiation. There is no room so that we can work through this together. It feels very much on the side of MLS and on the side of the owners and saying, that's it, that's our number, and that's how we're moving on because that's the money we need and that's what's necessary. I think as players, you have to have some flexibility. As players, you have to have some understanding that you live in the real world and that the real world has been affected by something that none of us saw coming and has affected the world in a way that we not only we could not predict, but you would think as players that you're insulated from this. And the truth is that you're not. You're part of the real world as well. And so therefore, there's going to be a situation by which you're going to have to take some salary cuts. And that, I think, can be understandable and can be acceptable if it's done hand in hand with the league and the owners. If it is indeed something in which we're all holding hands together and taking this step forward. What it feels like is essentially MLS putting the players in a situation where, look, you're going to have to take this salary cut and you're going to have to accept it. And if you don't, then the CBA that we had agreed upon may be somewhere where now it's not so solid as it was before. And so it feels like this negotiation is not really a negotiation as much as it is a mandate. And that's where I think the players would have a difficult time accepting it. But in the court of public opinion, you cannot come out, if you're a professional athlete in this country, and say, no, we're not taking a wage cut. Because let's think about all the people that have lost their jobs. Let's think about all the people that have taken salary cuts. Let's think about the current situation and the current environment in which we're in. And so it would be a major blow for players and the perception of the MLS players if you say flat out, no, we're not taking a salary cut. I think the players should be able to negotiate, and I think there's got to be some give and take with MLS owners, and the Players Association as well.
Herc, if you were still sat on the bench at Seattle, how would you feel?
You know, Dan, I'm with Ali that there has to be some give and take. There has to be a compromise and negotiation here. What I don't understand really is, and I haven't seen it in other professions, and maybe some people out there can correct me if I'm wrong, is they're asking for money paid already to be returned. If they make it to the June 1st date, that's already 50% of their salaries that they would have earned anyways. So I understand that we're all in this predicament in this pandemic, and we all need to adjust accordingly. But they're not asking for future earnings. They want money's already made, and that's where I think it gets murky. And this mandate that Ali talks about, he's 100%. It's not a negotiation, it's a mandate. And it almost feels like they're threatening the players with, well, if you don't play ball, you know that CBA that we just negotiated in theory, maybe that goes out the window, and what happens next? We lock you guys out. And if there's a lockout, I really don't know where that puts the Major League Soccer players, Major League Soccer itself, and the sport in this country right now.
I can tell you, Dan, that what I think.
Meanwhile,
what I think, Dan, is or what I would look beyond is the fact that if they're asking for this cut, I wouldn't so much focus on the fact that they're asking for that salary cut in itself. I would focus on the bigger picture and what does that mean? What is MLS preparing for that they're already asking and putting into plan and putting into discussion the idea of a 50% salary cut? Does that mean, and has this been part of the discussion in MLS offices and among MLS executives, does this mean that they're currently thinking about the possibility, and is this a real possibility, that maybe they're not going to play the games? While they're saying that they want to play the games, that they want to play the season, we do know, and we have seen an article come out and say, look, without the gate revenue, and Herc just touched upon it, without the gate revenue, it's really not all that worth it for MLS teams to be out there playing. And so when you consider the fact that they're asking for this money, is this a preparation and laying the foundation in saying, you know what, there is a real chance that we may not play this season at all?
What if you're in a situation, as Herc and you've both mentioned, in the sense that it's in front of an empty stadium, therefore the revenue's not coming in, but as a player you still want to play, but you're not getting paid your full salary? How would you feel in that scenario, Herc?
I feel terrible, but I think Ali hit the nail on the head here. Maybe ownership in Major League Soccer is telling us it's not worth it for us to put you guys out there and play in empty stadiums and play for just the fans to watch on TV. We're spending too much money. We're not making anything in return. It's not worth it for us. And that, for me, as a player, feels worse.
That feels like this is almost looking through the mirror now, Ali, at a reason as to why would the owners, if they're going to make a loss, why would they force the season to come back in front of empty stadiums? Because if it's all about balancing the books, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and hence why when I look at the news of this potential salary cut, I'm not so much concerned about what that number means immediately or in the immediate term for the players, as much as I am concerned about what it means in the bigger picture and the bigger platform. And I think in the spectrum of MLS, essentially what owners are saying is, look, we are going to minimize the damage here. This is damage control situation. And if that's the case, then MLS executive and MLS owners will get together and say, what is the best for us? What can we do in order to stop the bleeding, in order to make sure that we are in a much better place after this pandemic comes and goes? And I think in that bigger picture that I just mentioned, what has come into play that perhaps wasn't into play maybe a couple of weeks ago is the fact that, you know what, they are considering the possibility of shutting down this season for good. It just feels that way. You just take the sequence of events as they have happened, and while they maintain that they want to play the games and they maintain that the possibility of a tournament may still be out there, when you start looking at numbers, and if this reports that we have seen that MLS teams on average will make roughly $1.5 million per game, and they would be missing out on that if the games are played behind closed doors, I tell you, it's a significant number, and a significant number across the league for all teams. And you consider that, you do the math, and you start thinking about, okay, what is it that they're really going after here? And so much so for me that it has to do more than just about the salaries. This is more about the health of MLS in the near and distant future.
Herc, I know I'm putting you on the spot there, and you as well. I don't know if you can actually answer this, but who makes the ultimate decision? Will it be a vote from each franchise, or will it be Don Garber saying, look, no, this is what we're going to do? How does this all come about? How does this reach a conclusion?
I'm sure the ultimate decision will be a board and within Major League Soccer, Don Garber and his advisors who decide on if this goes through or not. I think the players actually have very little say in this. There will be a reduction in pay, regardless whether they want to or not. How much remains to be the question, but that health that Ali touched upon, listen, it's looking like every day these owners with these deep pockets that we've been sold on, that are multi-billionaires, that have NFL teams, NBA teams, that have other corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, they just don't see it as a viable investment right now. And that's tricky. At the end of the day, Don Garber doesn't work for the players. He works for the owners. And that decision will be his and the board's to make.
Well, it really is going to be fascinating how this is all going to play out. On a completely different note, well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.